You know, Noah was in my homeroom, and I started my day with Noah, and I ended my day with Noah. I picture a tall, blonde-haired kid with always a smile on his face, kind of a light that surrounded him. I mean, he just had such a demeanor and a personality that you couldn't help but be drawn to him.
Next is Noah Keller.
He was always cheerful, always had a smile on his face. He was always making others feel better about themselves, and I feel like his goal was just to make everyone else happier.
And his award is from Melvin, and his award is for being a good friend.
It was a busy day. We were loading stuff up, getting ready to go up to camp. Had to make a stop at Sam's Club to get my last little bit of stuff. We were just driving up north to go to camp. Went off the right side of the road, overcorrected, and it was just, I'll never forget it. I mean, I'll never forget that feeling of flipping and flipping and flipping. Jacob said, "Is everybody all right?" And then he said, "Noah's gone." He had been thrown away from the Suburban.
His mom found him, and she started crying.
I just remember crumbling, and my sister-in-law came over and she said, "He's gone." And I said, "I know." And I just told her, I just remember kissing him and telling him how sorry I was that we were in the accident and then he was gone.
Everyone in the Suburban that day was wearing a seatbelt, but what the Kellers had no way of knowing was that the model Suburban they were driving had a seatbelt defect. Noah's failed to lock, causing him to be ejected and killing him instantly.
I could have been mad and blamed her. It's not her fault. It's just, I think it's so important to have somebody to lean on.
He could have been angry. He could have been mad at me. He could have blamed me for all of this, and that would have just torn us apart. And he didn't. He loved me.
In the midst of a terrible storm, Joe and Leah moved forward, and as the days turned to months and the months to years, one thing became very clear. At the age of 12, their son had left an indelible mark on those around him. After his passing, his 6th grade class expressed their feelings through his school locker. Today, that same locker sits just outside his homeroom class.
The thing that stands out most in my mind, and as I looked back on it now, is many of the kids as 6th graders, and they're still very, very, very young, but they voiced heaven and I'll see you again. And I love you. And I think that was really powerful as well.
I think it took me a few months to realize the whole reality of the situation, that I wasn't going to see one of my best friends ever again, and that's tough. It still is tough.
Get clean with OxyClean.
Noah is never far from Jacob's thoughts. The day of the accident, he and Noah had switched seats somewhere along the way. Something he says he thinks about all the time. Entering his senior year, Noah's absence would only strengthen his best friend. With Noah's dad, Joe, as the assistant basketball coach, every time Jacob stepped on the court, it was in honor of his friend.
He would love to have this opportunity to come out here with his best friends and play basketball and football, so we strive to do it for him because he couldn't do it.
They started the season slow, and as the divisional tournament rolled around, hopes were high. But with an early round loss and trailing by 13 in the second half of an elimination game, the light of their season was dissipating. Until Jacob Hadley brought his team back to life. He would take over the game, scoring 19 of his team's final 21 points. And with the game tied with 4 seconds to play, he sent his team to the state tournament. a team that wasn't supposed to make it out of divisionals found themselves at the state tournament and eventually into the championship game.
There's only a couple teams get to play in the state championship, and to get there is a pretty amazing feat. And they did really want to win that game for Noah, because that was always his dream, and they've carried that mantra.
No one wanted it more for those seniors than Joe. But no matter how hard they fought, it wasn't meant to be. But even in their loss, they found strength in the comforting words and love of a father.
I told him, it's okay. It's okay that we didn't win. I'm still proud of you, and Noah would still be proud of you, and he would love to be here with you guys. But that's not the way the cards roll, and you made it proud, and you made me proud. Everyone came up a little short. Sometimes that's the way it works. But we all know that's not the worst thing that could happen to us. You guys have been through the worst.
Just knowing that he was there for us after all that he's been through too, it meant a lot to me and the rest of the guys.
Central's class of 2016 had endured the loss of 2 classmates over the past 6 years, and yet somehow it's only brought them closer together. And as they prepared to graduate, it was another of Noah's 6th grade classmates, Mariah LaFontaine, who would cement the legacy of George, Noah, and the entire class into this one image.
It's so beautiful, and the message in there, every triangle stands for a student, and you could just tell that she put her heart and soul into that drawing.
It just made me feel good that they still remember him and remember him that fondly.
At 12 years old, Noah wrote essays. One called The Joys of God Surround Us, talking about the ways God finds joy in us. He wrote another about his life and his future, and how he would turn down professional football to marry the love of his life. He talked about the children he was to have, their names, Joseph, Adam, and Alexandra. He even made his dad promise to write a book about him if he were to ever die, a promise Joe would painfully fulfill.
That's just something that 6th grade kids, you don't really see that much of. And I'm sure if Noah was still alive today, he would be making people smile all the time. And that's something that I think everyone should strive to be more like and to go out and do.
No one will ever really know the answer to the question of why. But oftentimes it's in our greatest adversities that we see just how wonderful life and the people in it really is. Maybe the example of Peter walking on water in the midst of a storm wasn't in a literal sense at all, but rather when life's storms come and things seem impossible, we either sink into the darkness and despair, or we choose to walk through it with the faith that someone will be there to help lead us to dry land. Their journey has seemed impossible at times, but someone has always been there for Joe and Leah. And like the meaning of Noah's name, they take rest and comfort in that their son's legacy will forever live on in the lives he's touched. Brandon Sullivan, MTN News.